Dia Duitacha, hello my friends. We have a very short one for you today. Chapter 5 is only 3 pages, Seelie and Unseelie. You might be able to hear some trickling water in the background. That's just my fish tank. Fish are right over there. Okay, so let's get into the story. Seelie and Unseelie. Orla walked in the opposite direction that Neil had run off in, hoping desperately that he had already returned home and she wouldn't run into him. She was both terrified to be alone on an unplanned journey and exhilarated to be free. But after a few hours, the adrenaline rush wore off and she felt a heavy fatigue come over her. There were no real predators to humans in Ireland, and wolves had gone extinct when her grandparents were children. The only real threat to her safety would be from other people, and there were no people in this part of the woods. "That's not the whole truth," said a small voice in her head. "What of the fair folk?" At that time, you would meet few people who did not believe in the fair folk. In fact, most people could tell you of at least one encounter they had had with a fairy, usually when they were children. Sometimes it would be some small setback of misfortune, followed by high-pitched laughter. Other times, people would actually catch a glimpse of an unnaturally attractive face watching them from the trees, or the glimmer of a wing far too large to be a butterfly's. It was also said that these creatures would most often take the form of animals, so if an animal was acting strangely intelligent, it was said to be a fairy in disguise. In general, people were afraid and in awe of the little folk. But that was only because you could never be sure if they were good or evil. Legend had it that while no fairy was really friendly with humans, only half of them were pure evil and mischief, and those were of the Unseelie court. The other half, the Seelie, were still full of tricks, but they didn't cause humans any real harm. And there were even stories of them taking pity on young humans who lost their way in the woods, or helping humans in other ways. They would either adopt the children or guide them home. Those who were guided home were considered blessed for life, and henceforth marked by good fortune. Orla was not afraid of the fair folk. She had caught many glimpses of them throughout her whole life, and it always made her happy to spot them. They were always animals in form, but after most sightings, she would have a dream in which the fairy revealed their true form, and they were breathtakingly beautiful. So when she saw a deer walk across her path, staring at her without any fear of a normal deer, she was comforted rather than alarmed by its weird behavior. She noticed that there was a slight depression in the ground between 2 thick trees, and it was filled with dry leaves. This was as good a place as any to get some rest. She spread her blanket on the leaves and folded it over herself. As she fell asleep, she thought she saw the deer lay down a short distance away, with its dark eyes watching her unblinkingly. When she woke, the deer was gone and the sun was shining bright through the dense forest. Orla sat up and took stock of the situation. She was hungry and a bit sore from sleeping on the ground. On the other hand, she was unhurt and felt well rested, and it was exciting to be on her own for the first time. In her haste the previous night, she had forgotten to bring any water. So she had 2 orders of business. She reasoned she needed water and a plan. As she ate her bread and cheese, she thought about what she would most like to do. She could go to another town and find work. She would probably find a young man who wanted to marry her, have children, grow old, die. Her face twisted with dissatisfaction. None of that appealed to her. There must be some way to avoid such an ordinary life, she thought. What truly made her happy? She thought of the time her father had taken her to the ocean. He had told her a marvelous tale about the Selkies, women who could don an enchanted fur robe that would transform them into a seal. What a life that would be, swimming in the sea and only having to come to land when you wanted to. They had seen a pair of seals that day, and Orla loved their sleek bodies and their big black eyes that seemed so intelligent. She had never heard a story of someone becoming a Selkie, but there were plenty of stories of people who either ran away to dance with the fairies or who were stolen by the fairies in their youth. She decided she would make her way to the ocean, find a group of Selkies, and beg them to make her one of them. If it worked, she would live forever happily in the sea, and if it didn't work, maybe she would marry a handsome fisherman and at least get to see the ocean every day. Happier now that she had a purpose, she quickly packed up her few things and started on her way. Judging by the position of the sun, she determined which way was west and began what she reckoned would be about a week's journey to the sea. And that's where we will stop for today. Thank you so much for listening with me, and I'll see you next time for chapter 6. It's fun.